I'm Brittany. This is Hua Cheng, and welcome to Gaywatch, where we watch gay things. Sorry for being a little bit late. It it's the silliest reason. It's so I eyeliner problems. Eyeliner problems. You know, I don't do anything fancy with makeup. I never have. But, sometimes once in a very rare blue moon, I try to do even the most basic thing and it goes horribly, horribly wrong. Um, I don't know what else to. If you've ever put on eyeliner, hopefully you feel me, you understand. Because if something really goes wrong with eyeliner, it's like not an immediate fix. So, like, if way too much goes on, like, calming that down, not easy. Um, so that's the big sexy reason why we're starting late. It was the right eye was more raccoonish than I think you guys would want to see. So but now we're here. And we're still doing 50 pages. We're still going to go as long as it takes to do 50 pages. We're just starting a little bit late. So, my apologies for that. We are continuing our trek through Heaven Official's Blessing Volume 4. We are on Chapter 62, page 157. We're on a boat, and that boat is apparently in danger. Because, oh my god, did my voice just break right there? This is going to be a stream. Guys, I almost said the chapter of the name. We're in for a time. The name of the chapter is Ships in the Lair of Ghosts Shall Sink. So this is a really good omen for all my faves who are currently involved in this. I'm not concerned. Why would I be concerned? They're on a ship, and ships in these waters have a tendency to sink. So I don't know why anybody would be stressed out at that knowledge. Let's see. I have a cough. It's a lingering chronic cough caused by asthma when I was a kid. I try to mediate it as best I can. Sometimes it's like particularly nasty. Sometimes it's fine. It usually improves as the stream goes on somehow. I'm not sure. Maybe it's because I have to like wake up and then hop on the stream, and so the voice is still, even, warming up the voice is still needing to get used to being used. Yeah, that's probably it. But we just kind of deal with it. So, it has already been a couple seconds. We've got people coming in. So let's go ahead and start. Like, since we're behind, we may as well not dick around. Hang on, I do not have anything oriented the way that it should be. Because I still need to be able to, there you are, see you guys without seeing like 14 different versions of myself, but being able to keep an eye on how the stream is holding up. There we go. Alright. Let us begin. Whew. One of the four Supremes, ship sinking Blackwater? Hualian asked. For calamities, not for Supremes. Only then did Hualian realize that he had subconsciously removed Chu-Rong from the calamity ranks. Who wouldn't, really? Let's be honest. Let's be honest. This was likely because there was no way he could put Night Tour and Green Lantern on the same level as the other three. That's rough, buddy. As someone who had dutifully What? Huh? What? Oh, okay. Sorry. grammar of this seemed weird, but it's not. It's actually normal, and I'm the weird one. As someone who had dutifully crammed with informative scrolls, Hualian knew a bit about ships sinking black water. Oh! Lore drop! Okay, everybody shut up. According to legend, he was a great and powerful water ghost who lurked in the outer seas. Like Crimson Rain-sought Flower, he slaughtered his way out of Mount Tonglu. Although he tended to keep a low profile, that profile was only low in the mortal and heavenly realms. He had devoured over 500 infamous, nefarious creatures across the land, about 400 of which were other high-level water ghosts. The Blackwater Demon Lair was his personal domain. Wait. This sounds like he's the Batman of the calamities. You know? He only kept a low profile in the mortal and heavenly realms, and he just devoured over 500, and then 400 of which were other high-level... Hang on. Water Batman. Thank you. That's his new nickname. Water Batman. I'm just going to shut up and read. I'm very curious. Just as Ghost City was... I'm so sorry. Just as Ghost City was under Hua Cheng's jurisdiction alone, lawlessness reigned within these boundaries. When one stepped foot into a Supreme's domain, they had the final say. There was a widespread saying in the Ghost realm, Crimson rules the land, Black masters the waters. Crimson, obviously referred to Crimson Rain-sought Flower, who was known for his signature red clothing. Black was none other than Blackwater Demon Xuan. Watermaster Xiang, you're really unlucky this time, Pei Ming said, but Demon Xuan isn't like the Green Ghost. He's not the type to look for trouble. Thankfully, we haven't strayed too far, so let's steer back quickly before we're discovered. Wait! If he's Water Batman, a term that I love so much already, if he's Water Batman, then wouldn't he perceive Hua Cheng to be something that he doesn't like very much? So, like, at first you're like, we have a boat full of reasonably good people. It should be fine. Except, not fine? Thankfully, we haven't strayed too far, so let's steer back quickly before we're discovered. The others stared at him. Well, why don't you change course then? Aren't you the one in charge of this ship? Pei Ming was equally confused. Did it not change course yet? The ship should follow my command on its own. It shouldn't require physical control. But the rudder didn't budge. With no other options, Pei Ming resorted to manual steering, but when his hands landed on the rudder, he furrowed his brows. Hualian went over as well. It won't move? It was impossible that Pei Ming lacked the strength for it. Hualian was fairly confident in his own strength, and yet he wasn't able to move it either. After examining the situation at hand, Ming Yi announced, It must have gotten caught on something. I'll go down to take a look. Shi Qingxuan chimed in, I'll go with you, Ming Xiang. Come back here, Shi Wudu said sternly. Don't go running around. Shi Qingxuan didn't dare disobey, knowing that his brother shouldn't be distracted or emotionally agitated while he was undergoing his trial. He returned to Shi Wudu's side, shamefaced, leaving Ming Yi to investigate under the deck alone. Hualian wanted to help, but he knew he wasn't as capable as the Earthmaster when it came to building and repairs. Even if he went, he wouldn't be able to do much. As he gazed into the pitch-black sea that surrounded them, Hualian remembered something more important. Did any fishermen end up around here? Hua Cheng had extremely good eyesight and had been working alongside Hualian in the search and rescue efforts. He was the one who had discovered many of the stranded fishermen. He did a quick survey around them. There shouldn't be, Hua Cheng concluded. Blackwater Demon Lair is in the South Sea. They wouldn't drift this far. And the area here has a barrier, so ordinary folk can't enter, barring special circumstances. Even if they did, they're beyond saving. Basically, everything that drifts here sinks. The South Sea. He hadn't realized they drifted so far. Hualian tested his spiritual communication array, and sure enough, the connection was down. Their connection before... Their connection before had been spotty, but still usable. Now there was complete silence. Although the sea currently looked peaceful, there could be danger lurking in the abyssal depths. The sky was growing darker, and Hualian felt uneasy. Since there aren't any stranded fishermen in these parts, if Lord Earthmaster can't repair it, why don't we abandon ship and head ashore? Lord Watermaster can return to the EC for his trial, and we can continue the search and rescue as well, he suggested. That works, Pei Ming agreed and opened the cabin door. Yet when he pulled open the door, instead of dry land, he was met with the interior of an empty cabin. His face changed at the sight. The teleportation array lost its power? Hua Cheng laughed. Isn't that obvious? If you can't use the spiritual communication array, why would the teleportation array work any better? Pei Ming sent a sidelong glance at him. Little friend, you seem quite calm for someone so young. Not worried at all, are you? He commented flatly. The ship drifted into ghost... The ship drifted into ghost territory and is sinking as we speak, Hualian interrupted. We can't leave even if we want to. Let's solve the problem at hand first. Shi Qingxuan called under the deck. Mingxiang, how's the situation looking down there? Can you fix it? Ming Yi's voice came from below. Nothing's broken. The ship hasn't caught on anything either. Something else made the ship lose power. That would be Demon Xuan's spiritual field, Pei Ming stated gravely. As he was speaking, the ship dipped violently again. Hualian saw that water had already swallowed over half the ship. A normal boat would have given way to the waves by now, but this one still resisted and fought to stay afloat, due to its divine provenance. There must be exceptions. It's impossible that everything sinks here, he insisted. There must be something that won't sink. There is, Hua Cheng said. All attention fell on him. With his arms folded, he elaborated lazily. There is one type of wood that will not sink in the Blackwater Demon Lair. Hualian guessed at several common special varieties of wood. Sandalwood, agarwood, elm, coffin wood, Hua Cheng answered. Coffin wood? Yep, Hua Cheng said. No one has returned alive after stumbling into the Blackwater Demon Lair, except for one individual. He was traveling home with the corpse of a family member. After his boat sank, he rode the coffin and drifted back to shore. Pei Ming raised his brow. You sure know a lot, little friend. You keep calling him little friend, you're about to find out. Hua Cheng mirrored his expression. Nah, you just know. No, you just know too little, that's all. Shiwudu remained in his meditation position and his hands maintained their seal, but he turned his attention to Hua Cheng and narrowed his eyes. Pei Xiang, I've been meaning to ask, who exactly is this? Where is he from? Why is he with you? I'm afraid you'll have to ask His Highness about that, Pei Ming explained. After all, he's someone from his palace. All right, Shi Qingxuan interrupted. Enough of that who knows how much talk. Now that spells have lost their power, where do we get a coffin around here? That's easy, Pei Ming answered. Come, Gaga will build one for you right now. I'll show you what it means to take things into your own hands and live well without anyone's help. That won't work, Hua Cheng pointed out. It has to be a coffin that's carried a corpse. Does Hua Cheng count as a corpse? These are the questions, you know? That was that, then. It wasn't like they could build a coffin and then kill a person in the group to fill it. As they discussed the topic, the boat dipped again. The deck where they stood tilted and was almost level with the water's surface, and Shiwudu nearly toppled out of his prim and proper meditation pose. Forget it, let me handle this, he said coldly. He produced his fan and tapped it lightly against the center of his forehead, then fanned it out to reveal the character for water on the front and a wave pictogram made up of 3 curving lines on the back. He lifted his arm and issued a command. Water, come forth! I mean, I suppose if you're going to be stranded in basically like evil water, it would be kind of nice to have heavenly water. You know? You know what I mean. Hualian felt the ship spring upward. The deck rose almost a meter above the waterline, and some sense of safety returned. The Watermaster fan even controls the waters of the Blackwater Demon Lair? He asked in surprise. Not the water here, Hua Cheng corrected. He channeled it from elsewhere. As it turned out, they hadn't ventured too far past the boundary of the Blackwater Demon Lair, so Shiwadu was still able to call forth nearby waters to lift the ship from underneath. Beautifully done, Watermaster Xiang, Peiming praised. Now that the rudder is useless, the boat can't turn around. Quick, use the current to haul the ship back. Before Shiwadu could reply, the ship dipped once again. The Demon Lair's water refused to concede defeat and clashed with the current from the outside seas. The dip was ruthless this time, and the deck tilted even more. Losing balance, the crew slid to the bow of the ship. Although Shiwadu was born with gentlemanly, handsome looks, his personality was extremely imperious, and he refused to retreat. Sensing that something dared to oppose him, anger flashed across his face. He snapped his fan shut, and when he opened it again, the 3 wave lines had grown larger, and the outer current doubled in force. The ship was yanked up once again. With one force relentlessly dragging the boat down, and another stubbornly forcing it to rise, the ups and downs made it seem like a giant game of tug-of-war. The ship sailed onward, then jolted to a stop, and it sank and rose with the motion. Waves crashed wildly around them, making seawater roll across the deck and into the ship. It was an incredibly vexing situation. If ordinary folk were on board, they would be scared witless by now. Hualian grabbed the ledge tightly with one hand, while he held onto Hua Cheng tightly with the other. What's happening? The ship is turning, he exclaimed. It was just as he said. The ship had started spinning. The faster it spun, the lower it sank. Hualian abruptly realized that the ship had been dragged into a giant maelstrom and was being sucked into its vortex. Everyone be careful, he warned. The 2 forces of water are clashing. In the end, this was not Shiwadu's home turf. While the current he'd summoned from the outer sea was mighty, it weakened after crossing the boundary. It was at a slight disadvantage in the fight against the tides of the Demon Lair. As expected, as soon as Hualian spoke, the ship was sucked into the vortex. Hualian tossed out Feng Xin at the last second and pulled Hua Cheng close. The 2 stepped onto the sword and flew up and away. Well, at least you saved your boyfriend. At first he was worried that Feng Xin wouldn't have the strength, but he let out a sigh of relief the moment they left the deck. Although it was shaky, at least the sword could still fly. They looked down from above to see the whole area was painted a deep, terrifying black. Below them were 2 massive currents of obviously different colors, and it was their pursuit of and clash with each other that had formed the colossal Maelstrom. As the vortex swallowed the ship whole, the 2 water currents quickly separated. However, their battle was far from over. They continued to snap at each other like 2 venomous vipers, and each collision stirred angry waves. Hualian looked around. Lord Windmaster, Lord Earthmaster, General Pei, is everyone still here? Shi Qingxuan's voice came from dozens of meters behind him. Your Highness, we're over here. Did you hop on your sword as well? Hualian turned, and the scene that greeted him left him speechless. Okay, here we go. Ming Yi stood atop of the handle of a crescent shovel. Shi Qingxuan was seated on the head of the same shovel and was waving at Hualian. They didn't ride forth on a sword, but a shovel. The sight was unbearable to witness. Give me the art. Peiming's voice also called to them from nearby. Where's Watermaster Xiang? Seeing that Peiming was on his sword alone and there was no sign of the Watermaster, Shi Qingxuan cried out, Guh? Guh! No need to panic. The Watermaster is the god of water. He can't have gone under, Hualian reassured him. But when he recalled the power of the whirlpool, wow, he didn't dare underestimate its might. He turned to Hua Cheng. Senlong, hold on tight to my waist. Don't lose your grip and fall. Hua Cheng very obediently did so. Okay. But Gaga, there's something I have to tell you. God, that's right! I'm fine. What is it? Hualian asked. You can't fly in the black water demon lair. It'll attract things. Shit. Not a moment later, a long, sharp cry pierced the air. God damn it. A behemoth white creature, holy shit, broke through the water's surface and headed straight for Pei Ming? It'll attract things. I thought it was going to attract things from the air. You know, like some kind of weird ancient Chinese vulture? Not something from the water. That's creepy. That's cursed. I don't like that. No. Can we? No. A behemoth white creature just megalodoned out of the water? You're fucking... I'm not alright. Pei Ming was a master swordsman, and he reflexively reached for his sword the moment he saw a monster attacking, only to belatedly realize said sword was under his feet. Luckily, his reaction was swift. He leapt into the air, grabbed his sword, and sliced the incoming creature in half. Before gravity could take hold, he flipped back onto the sword without a single hair out of place. I have thoughts about Pei Ming. I think we all do. But, like, he can have this moment. Okay? I thought this was about to be a whole thing. And here he steadily flew upward and asked in a rather calm tone, what was that? After it was cleaved in half, the creature crashed back into the sea with a mournful wail. Hualian squinted to get a better look at the creature floating on the water's surface. Fish? It was certainly a fish, but this wasn't your average sea creature. It was a skeletal fish, over 15 meters in length and half a dozen meters wide. This fish had neither flesh nor scales, only stark white bones that connected to a mouth filled with sharp teeth. He couldn't immediately determine if it was venomous, but its bite would surely be a pain in the butt regardless. A skeleton fish. A gigantic skeleton fish. I want to go home. I don't like it here. No. Pei Ming flew higher. Be careful, there's definitely more than one of those things, he warned. Sure enough, the moment he mentioned more than one, a second skeletal fish shot out from the depths. This time, it headed straight for Ming Yi and Shi Xuan. Unfortunately, the Earthmaster wasn't a martial god and had little fighting power, and the Windmaster was now in mortal flesh. On top of all this, Ming Yi was rusty when it came to shovel riding. Even though the two didn't get bitten, they were still knocked off balance and sent tumbling down to the waters below. As they fell, Shi Xuan cried out in despair, Ming Xiang, after today, make sure to use your spiritual device more, okay? Screw off! Ming Yi snapped at him. It's probably my own personal brand of humor, but it would have been even funnier if Ming Yi had just been like, fuck you! You know? That's fantastic. Pei Ming sighed and rushed over to rescue the two. Seeing his skilled form, Hualian knew that he would be able to handle it on his own. It's really not Earthmaster's fault, he thought. A shovel as a spiritual device, no heavenly official with any sense of shame would want to bring it out. Just then, a chill ran down his spine. Hualian regained his focus and said temperately, Senlong, hang on tight and watch out. Something's coming our way. Do we need to take a shot every time he's like, oh, Senlong, hang tight, grip me harder, don't let go? Because it's been like 3 times in 5 pages, I'm just saying. Something's coming our way. Okay. His arms tightened around his waist. And also, what do you want Hua Cheng to do about this? When your crush is like, babe, wrap your arms around me and hold me tight. Oh no, like, what are you gonna do? Not long after, 4 Watery walls shot up from the depths and surrounded them. 4 giant bonefish rose from the sea. Rather than fish, the ghastly behemoth skeletons were more like dragons. You could have said, it keeps getting worse. Sharp, jagged horns protruded from their skulls. Balls of inextinguishable ghost fire burned in their empty eye sockets like giant lanterns, and the 4 legs each one had were tipped with claws. Their bodies were as thick as water vats and at least a few dozen meters long. Their upper halves breached the water's surface, but it was impossible to guess the length of the rest that lurked beneath the waves. The creatures circled Hualian and Hua Cheng as they hung there in the air, leaving no room for escape. The pair couldn't fly upward. This was as high as Fengshen could go. If they descended, the deathly silent ocean would greet them. Hualian sighed. All right, who's first? After a moment of consideration, he clasped his hands. Together it is. Soon after, the bone dragon to the east took the initiative. What, he rolled a nat 20? Nat 20s don't actually affect initiative, but it's still pretty much guarantee going first. That was Dungeons and Dragons lingo, by the way, going on. It shrieked and charged forward. Hualian raised his hand and jabbed a finger in its direction. The bone dragon froze on the spot. It was a massive creature, but it was frozen in place by 1 sword, 1 man, and 1 finger. No matter how it struggled, it couldn't move another inch forward. Its tail and hindclaws thrashed and raised walls of waves. The other 3 dragons lunged forward as well. Hualian curled his fingers into a claw, grabbed the frozen bone dragon by the horn, and lashed its body out like a whip. A loud whoosh tore through the sky. The 3 incoming dragons were skewered by the one Hualian thrashed out, and they howled as they collapsed into the sea in a mess of bones. Hualian watched the broken bones drift with the movement of the waves as he dusted off his hands and let out a breath. He turned around. Senlong, are you okay? Hua Cheng smiled happily at him. Under Guga's protection, how could anything happen to me? Someone in this group is having a really good day. His response made Hualian feel embarrassed. Now that he thought about it, dealing with this sort of thing was also an easy task for Hua Cheng. How could he be anything but perfectly fine? So it sounded like Hualian was intentionally asking for praise. Just then, the sword unexpectedly dipped. Before Hualian could even register what had happened, they were already falling rapidly. An instant later, they plunged headfirst into the icy cold water. They weren't dragged down by anything. Fengshen was simply too old and couldn't hold out anymore. It needed to rest after straining itself for so long. The bone-chilling seawater rushed in from all directions. Hualian choked on water a few times, then quickly shut his mouth tight and tried to swim upward. But the Blackwater demon lair was as wicked as described. Though Hualian considered himself a fairly good swimmer, his body felt like a block of lead in these waters. No matter what he did, he couldn't float. He opened his eyes, but the water was as black as the world behind his eyelids, and he couldn't find Hua Cheng. He groped around with his hands, but he only managed to grab hold of the sinking Fengshen, not the person he sought. He started to grow anxious. The more anxious he was, the more sluggish his movements became, and the faster he sank. You know what happened in the water last time with them? I'm just saying. These are just simply ideas. Thankfully, it wasn't long before a hand suddenly parted the fog. Hualian's eyes lit up. In the next second, someone grasped his hand, hugged his waist, and tugged him upward. They ascended rapidly through the waters and broke the surface, and Hualian sucked in a few breaths. When he wiped his face, he found that he'd been brought up from the depths by none other than Hua Cheng. It was quite strange. Technically, Hua Cheng was dead. Coffin! That's what I'm saying! As the saying goes, the dead are heavier, dead weight, so to speak, so he should have sunk faster than Hualian, but he floated lightly and effortlessly in the water. He lowered his head to look at Hualian. Are you all right? Hualian nodded, but this scene felt quite familiar and brought with it memories of a similar situation that had happened not so long ago. It made him blush. With one arm wrapped around Hualian, Hua Cheng used his free arm to leisurely glide through the water. How else would he swim in incredibly dangerous territory? But, you know, lackadaisically. Hang on tight to me, Gaga. You'll sink if you let go. He's just like, oh, this is the best day ever. We just get to swap playing damsel with each other today. At a loss for words, Hualian blankly nodded several times. Not far from them, the water stirred, and several sharp horns broke through the surface, like the fins of a school of sharks. The horns rushed toward them with incredible speed. The 4 bone dragons that Hualian had knocked out were back for revenge. The bone dragons circled them, eyeing them with predatory gazes, but soon they could hold themselves back no longer, and ferociously dove in. Hualian gripped Fengshen tightly, but as he waited for the right moment to strike, he heard Hua Cheng click his tongue in annoyance. The bone dragons were already within arm's reach and ready to tear them apart, but upon hearing that sound, their killing intent immediately vanished. The fanged mouth that had been ready to snap Hualian's throat instead inched forward and nudged at Fengshen, as if pecking it with tiny kisses. Hualian was utterly confused. He remained dumbfounded as the 4 bone dragons scampered away like they were scared, tails between their legs. Hualian was left speechless, and he floated there in sheer bewilderment, but Hua Cheng had already continued swimming. Gaga, you see that? If you plan on raising pets in the future, definitely don't consider those things. They're useless trash. It's the way he so thoroughly insists on continual, ceaseless, never-ending hot boy shit that I really, really can't handle. Pets? No, I don't need any pets, Hualian replied weakly. All of a sudden, a water dragon hurtled up from under the water's surface and shot into the sky. Hualian looked up and saw Shiwudu seated on top of the creature's head. His hands were clasped together in an aggressive attack hand seal, and his face was dark with hostility, as if he was fighting vigorously against some unseen force. The once calm, once peaceful sea was now tossing and turning. Hualian called out, "Lord Windmaster, Lord Earthmaster! General Pei, where are you?" Borrowing the moonlight, he was able to scan his surroundings. Instead of finding his comrades, he found himself engulfed by a huge shadow. Hualian turned his head sharply, and his eyes widened. It was an enormous wave, as tall as a city wall. It engulfed the skies as it lunged his way. In the next moment, he was awash in complete darkness. There's a scene break there. We're now at the top of page 170. 170. This is fine. He drifted with the ebb and flow of the ocean for a long time. Hualian finally opened his eyes. While he didn't sit up, he could feel beneath him that he'd arrived on land. As he lay there regaining his strength, he lifted an arm and saw that his hand had become wrinkled from the prolonged soak. He felt something hard under his waist, and when he tilted his head to look, he realized that the object was Hua Cheng's arm. Hua Cheng was lying right next to him. By the look of things, he had never once let go. I hate her. I just fucking hate her. Surprisingly, even though Hualian had woken up, Hua Cheng had not. His eyes were tightly shut. Hualian quickly sat up and nudged him gently. Senlong, Senlong. Hua Cheng didn't respond. Shilian nudged him again while surveying their surroundings. They were on land, but it was a densely forested land with no signs of civilization in sight. No docks, no people at all. It seemed like an isolated island, not the mainland. The most surprising thing of all was that it was already daylight. They must have floated all night. Where had they ended up? Even after repeated nudging, Hua Cheng was still deep asleep and hadn't moved an inch. Ghosts couldn't drown, so Shilian trusted that Hua Cheng had not done so. But there was no guarantee that he hadn't been secretly wounded by something else, such as those barbed, poisonous bonefish. Shilian patted Hua Cheng down to check for wounds, feeling up his chest, his arms, and all the way down his legs. But other than coming to the conclusion that Hua Cheng had a truly fine body, he made no notable finds. Shilian blanked for a bit, as you would, then began to panic a little. Sanlong, don't joke around, he mumbled. No response. Oh my god, if he is faking Shilian out and was just conscious for this whole pat-down situation... No. Nope. No. In a moment of panic, Shilian pressed his head against Hua Cheng's chest to search for a heartbeat before he remembered that ghosts had no such thing. To his surprise, he actually heard a steady thump. Hang on. Taken aback, a thought came to him. Hua Cheng shouldn't be able to drown in his true form, but he was presently in the form of a 17 or 18-year-old human youth. So did the same rules apply? Smart. Although he still didn't think that Hua Cheng was the sort to overlook such things, there was really no other option at hand. He couldn't be roused even after Shilian pressed his chest a number of times. After a brief moment of hesitation, Shilian slowly reached out and cupped Hua Cheng's face with gentle hands. Fucking no. He was excessively good-looking. With his eyes closed, his sharp features softened into something gentler. He held Hua Cheng like this. He gazed at him and thought about what he was about to do next. Fucking no! It made it extremely difficult for Shilian to calm his heart. He debated for a long time, then looked around. There was no one there. He looked back at Hua Cheng, still unconscious. In the end, he made up his mind. Gritting his teeth, he whispered a simple phrase. I apologize in advance. His voice was practically shaking as he said it. He clapped his hands together in silent prayer and then bent down. With his eyes shut tight, he pressed his lips against Hua Cheng's. Hua Cheng's eyes snapped open. That's the end of the chapter. We're on page 173. Chapter 63. Close the casket. Coffin boat enters the ghost sea. Sure. Why not? What? Of course. However, since Shilian was feeling both overly nervous and overly guilty, his eyes were shut tight, and he remained completely unaware. MXTX really weaponizes third-person omniscient, by the way. The last time they had exchanged air, it was Hua Cheng who initiated it. He was domineering, and the kiss was deep. Shilian didn't dare recall the event after the fact, only remembering that his lips had been swollen and numb. The only thing he remembers. This time, he was taking the lead, and he was very cautious. He placed his lips very softly upon Hua Cheng's, as if he was afraid he'd accidentally wake him if he used too much force. It's the breath of life, not a... But in retrospect, Wasn't waking Hua Cheng his exact goal? If his kiss was too light and air leaked out between their lips, then wouldn't this be for naught? Shilian kept his eyes closed and silently rattled off excerpts from Dao De Jing as he pulled away to take a breath, then pressed his lips against Hua Cheng's once more. This time, the kiss was much deeper. Shilian finally captured Hua Cheng's... I'm sorry. I'm flying in too many directions. Hang on. Fucking hang on. I don't even know. Shilian finally captured Hua Cheng's thin, cool lips and gently blew in air. His eyes were closed through the whole process, not daring to look. After delivering 5 or 6 breaths, he thought he should push down on Hua Cheng's chest a few times, but the moment he opened his eyes, he found himself staring squarely into Hua Cheng's own widened ones. Oh! Art! Not of the kiss itself, but unfortunately. But still, I mean, hello? Hello? They know what we want to see. Focus. Sharpen. Wow, my camera's sluggish today. There we go. Zoom it. Stay. I'm probably wobbling too much. You get the picture, though. No pun intended. I don't believe. Shilian's hands still cupped Hua Cheng's cheeks, and their mouths had only just parted. Soft, gentle numbness still remained on their lips, for the love of fucking God. It was like the two had turned into stone statues, as if they would shatter with an errant breeze. Shilian's petrification was expected, but Hua Cheng, who always stayed carefree when faced with all manners of things, was equally stunned. Shilian didn't know how he managed not to drop dead on the spot from all the blood rushing to his head and other places. It took him a good moment to say, "Sen Lung, you're awake." Hua Cheng didn't speak. Shilian dropped his hands from Hua Cheng's cheeks at once and leapt meters back. No. It's not what you think. I just wanted to what? Deliver air? Did ghosts need air? If he said that out loud, even Shilian himself wouldn't believe it. Shilian was stumped. Hua Cheng quickly pushed himself up and extended a hand toward him, looking as though he was also forcing himself to keep steady. Your Highness, you just calm down first. Shilian clutched his head. He was a mess from head to toe. Finally, he put his hands together as if in prayer and gave Hua Cheng a deep, abrupt bow. I'm sorry. Having shouted his apologies, he turned around and bolted, fleeing the scene. Hua Cheng finally snapped out of it and scrambled to his feet to chase after him, shouting as he did, Your Highness! Shilian covered his ears and screamed his penitence as he ran. I'm sorry! This is to himself. Just die. If I can't die, just dig a hole somewhere and pretend to be dead. His mad dash carried him into the depths of the forest. As he ran, something resembling a sharp arrow came flying at him. Now? Shilian might have been rattled to the core, but his skill did not suffer for it. With a sweep of his hand, he caught a bone spur. He came to an abrupt stop and looked to where the attack had come from, but there was nothing there, only rustling shrubs. With danger lurking in the bushes, he calmed at once and whirled around to hurry back. Sen Lung! Hua Cheng had been trailing close behind, and Shilian's sudden change of direction almost sent him right into his arms. Shilian grabbed Hua Cheng's hand and dashed out of the woods. Run! There's something in the forest! Hua Cheng had at first been chasing after him, and he was now being dragged back where they came. Once they made it back to the beach, Shilian let out a breath of relief. We weren't followed, thank goodness. There are some little things on this island, but don't worry. They won't follow us here, Hua Cheng commented. Hearing this, Shilian suddenly realized, how could Hua Cheng possibly be afraid of those things? He looked down and found out he was still clutching his companion's hand. Shilian froze once more, then hurriedly let go and jumped away. Now that there was some distance between them, they fell silent for a moment. Then Hua Cheng sighed and tugged at his collar. Thank goodness Gaga rescued me earlier. Human bodies really are quite inconvenient. I end up choking down mouthfuls of salty water just from taking a dip in the sea. Disgusting. Shilian wasn't that stupid. He knew Hua Cheng was giving him an easy way out. But he would... But he went along with it, of course. It's nothing. Don't worry about it, he mumbled vaguely, head bowed. After a pause, Hua Cheng added, but Gaga didn't do it correctly. Flustered, Shilian asked awkwardly, Did I not? I thought I only needed to blow in some air. Yeah, that's not the correct method, Hua Cheng replied. Don't do this to anyone else in the future, otherwise, not only wouldn't he save a life, but he might just end a life. Hua Cheng spoke so seriously that Shilian felt rather ashamed. Good thing he never tried doing this before, or else he really would have committed a sin. I won't, he hurriedly swore. Hua Cheng nodded, then grinned. Although Shilian really wanted to ask Hua Cheng for instructions on how it should be done, he dared not dwell any longer on the subject and made a mental note of it instead. He looked around. I love how Hua Cheng has just ever so deftly has basically been like, don't ever kiss anyone else. Ever. Huh? Yet another win for Hua Cheng. Is this island really deserted? No trace of humans at all? Of course, Hua Cheng replied. This is Blackwater Island, at the heart of Blackwater Demon Lair. Oh, great! He stated that with complete confidence. I mean, obviously. Crimson Rain sought Flower and ship seeking Blackwater. The two Supremes seemed to know each other. Senlong, have you been here before? Shilian asked. Hua Cheng shook his head. Never, but I know of this island. Shilian knitted his brows. I wonder where Lord Windmaster and the others drifted. Perhaps they're here as well. This was the Blackwater Demon Lair located in the South Sea. It was someone else's territory. Pei Ming's main domain was in the north, and Earthmaster wasn't a martial god, and there was no need to elaborate on the Windmaster's condition. If anything happened and they incurred the ire of the Blackwater Demon Xuan, the only one who could fight back was the Watermaster, and there was no knowing when Shiwudu's heavenly tribulation would hit. The current situation wasn't looking good. Senlong, does Blackwater Demon Xuan have a temper? Shilian asked. What would he do if heavenly officials accidentally intruded on his domain and entered his home? Hard to say, Hua Cheng said, but Giga has surely heard the saying, Crimson rules the land, Black masters the waters. Even I have to watch my step in the Blackwater Demon Lair. This wasn't simply because it was the heart of Blackwater's domain, but also because they were both supremes. It was best for Hua Cheng to give his fellow Ghost Kings some face so they could remain cordial. Then we'd best leave as quickly as possible, Shilian said. Though they didn't re-enter the forest, they did a circuit of the island's edge. Shilian called out a few times, but he didn't hear any response from the Windmaster or anyone else. They probably didn't drift here, Hua Cheng surmised. The two returned to the beach. The surface of the sea was still heavy with gloom. Shilian picked up a piece of wood and threw it far into the distance. The wood should have floated, yet it instantly sank upon impact with the water. Shilian looked back at the dense forest. It seems like it'd be useless to build a boat. The teleportation array won't work here either. How are we going to leave the island? Who says it would be useless? Hua Cheng said. But only coffin wood that's housed the deceased can float in the Blackwater Demon Lair. He trailed off when he realized it. Thank you, coffin wood. There were trees everywhere, and there was a deceased person right before his eyes. Thank you so much. Sure enough, Hua Cheng smiled. Won't it work fine once I settle inside? Although he smiled, Shilian's heart was squeezed strangely by the statement. Why? Because you could potentially squeeze in there with him? Maybe? Maybe? Possible. An idea. A thought. Mind. Hua Cheng flattened his palm, and the scimitar Ming appeared in his hand. Having committed to the endeavor, they went straight to work collecting materials. They didn't venture deep into the woods, so they didn't encounter anything hiding in the shadows. It took no time at all for them to chop down a number of trees. That's because Ming is the best boy. Thank you. A whole day of labor went by in the blink of an eye, and the sky grew dimmer overhead. The two divided the work but competed with each other to scoop up more tasks, so their efficiency was amazingly high. By evening, the coffin was essentially complete. Shilian had only eaten half a steamed bun during this entire journey and was bitterly starving. But the sooner the coffin was made, the sooner they could leave, so he only excused himself to catch some fish after the coffin had taken basic shape. Yet how could there be fish within the waters of the Blackwater Demon Lair? Returning empty-handed, Shilian instead went to the edge of the forest and picked some wild fruit from the safer areas. But to his surprise, by the time he got back, Hua Cheng had already started a small campfire. He sat by the fire with one hand supporting his cheek and the other holding a stick with a wild hare forked on it, which he was roasting over the fire. I mean... Okay, listen. Most of us are very familiar with Modazushi here. So, like, her commitment to the detail of service tops shall not be infringed. You really, it's unimpeachable. Her knack for these things. And oh my god, you're totally right. This is the beach episode. Thank you, Audrey. He'd already cleaned the wild hare, and it was roasted perfectly. Dripping with juice, crisp and golden, the smell fragrant and incredibly alluring. Once he noticed Shilian, Hua Cheng smiled and passed the stick over. Shilian traded him some wild fruit for it. These are all edible. Both were still wet and dripping. They were soaked in seawater and sweat. However, there was a tacit understanding between them, and neither even suggested stripping out of their clothes to dry them. The meat of the wild hare was crispy on the outside, but tender on the inside. Shilian could feel the lingering heat from the fire in his teeth as he took a tentative bite, but quickly found that he couldn't stop eating. He savored the flavor that lingered on his lips. Even as he stuffed himself, Shilian conscientiously divided the meat in half and gave Hua Cheng his due portion. Senlung has such amazing skills, he sighed in awe. Hua Cheng laughed. Really? I thank Gaga for the compliment. It's true, Shilian said. I've never met anyone better than you at anything, whether it's carpentry or cooking. That noble, gracious, special someone really lucked out. As he said that, he acted like he was very focused on eating, though there wasn't any response from Hua Cheng. It was a while before Hua Cheng replied quietly, Then I got to meet that person. I'm the one who lucked out. You know, I've said it once, and I'll say it again, okay? I've read smut for y'all at this point. You know, very kinky smut. Out loud to y'all, face to face, at this point, if you keep up with Modazushi. And, it's the fluff that'll kill you. It's the fluff that will fucking kill you, okay? I don't know, man. They can't keep this up. I'm not doing well. Shilian Shilian didn't know what to say. Me either. And tried to focus even harder on eating. Only after several minutes did he register that Hua Cheng was calling him. Guga. Guga. Dazed, Shilian replied, Huh? Hua Cheng passed him a handkerchief, and Shilian suddenly realized he'd been chomping too hard on the meat. His mouth and chin were covered in grease, and he looked extremely silly. He felt quite embarrassed as he took the handkerchief to wipe himself clean. Hua Cheng passed him the other half of the roast hare as well. Guga must be starving. Don't rush yourself. Shilian took it. Though he was a little dismayed, he still broached the subject in the end. Senlung, oh God, just what kind of person is your special someone? He asked. Why haven't you won them over yet? He genuinely believed that if Hua Cheng wanted someone, there was no one on earth who could resist his advances. Be oblivious to them, maybe, but consciously resist? No. But that day, Hua Cheng had said he hadn't won them over yet. Shilian couldn't help but feel rather glum, and an odd feeling grew toward this individual the Ghost King fancied. It was probably because he thought the other party lacked taste. Or awareness. Or perhaps he thought they were taking Hua Cheng for granted. It's all right if Guga finds it funny, Hua Cheng replied. But truth is, I'm afraid. Whether it was out of a sense of injustice or a fear that Hua Cheng was putting himself down, Shilian responded in a serious tone. What's there to be afraid of? You're the Supreme Ghost King, Crimson Rain-sought Flower. Hua Cheng laughed out loud. What a shitty Ghost King. If I was really that formidable, I wouldn't have been so powerless when people strung me up and beat me centuries ago. You shouldn't say it like that, Shilian said. Everyone has to go through trials to grow up. But even as he said that, he realized that he'd never experienced humiliation of that sort before his first ascension. He cleared his throat lightly. That person saw me at my worst, Hua Cheng said. Then I'm very envious of that, Shilian replied. Hearing him say so, Hua Cheng gazed over. Shilian stopped eating and said gently, But I can sort of understand your feelings. Which ones? Be specific. After a pause, he continued, There was a period in my own life that wasn't easy. Back then, I'd always think about how wonderful it would be if someone could still love me for who I was, even if they could still love me for who I was, even if they saw me rolling in the dirt and couldn't get up. Though I don't know if there's anyone out there like that. And I'm scared of showing that part of myself too. But if it's someone Senlung yearns for, I think that even if they saw you at your worst, they wouldn't say something like, you're not so great after all. His face grew solemn. To me, the one basking in infinite glory is you. The one fallen from grace is also you. Fuck you! What matters is you, not the state of you. All of you. We're not even done. It's not even done. We're not even done. We're not even... I admire Senlung very much. I want to understand your everything, So I'm very envious that someone has already met that version of you so early on. That kind of affinity can only come by chance. It can't be begged for. And whether that bond should live on is 3 parts fate and 7 parts courage. The campfire crackled, and the two remained silent for a good while. Hualian softly cleared his throat as he rubbed his forehead. Have I said too much? How embarrassing. No, what you said was good. Very right, Hua Cheng replied. Hualian let out a breath of relief and quickly returned to eating the meat. It's not just that. There are many other reasons, Hua Cheng added. Despite Hua Cheng's sorry, I've lost the ability to communicate and read, so it's a good thing this isn't a reading live stream. Despite Hua Cheng's assurance, Hualian felt he'd said far too much and wanted to stop discussing the subject immediately. He couldn't understand it. Why did he ramble on like that, and why did he encourage Hua Cheng to bravely pursue his beloved? I mean, we can cut the boy some slack. He is the biggest virgin to end all virgins. So, why did he ramble on like that, and why did he encourage Hua Cheng to bravely pursue his beloved? It wasn't like he was the heavenly official who presided over marriage. He could only give a mumble as a reply. After his speech, the air between the two seemed rather delicate, and they quickly finished eating to continue their labor. Soon, the coffin was officially complete. Man, if they have to cuddle in a coffin now. Hua Cheng pushed the newly constructed coffin into the water and hopped in to sit inside. Although it was a long, heavy chunk of wood, it really did float, not sink. They didn't make the coffin particularly wide. And as Hualian lifted his robes to step in, he felt like there wasn't enough space to sit. Muffled roars of thunder boomed above them, and steely clouds rolled. Violet flashes of lightning streaked from the skies, and their explosive noise startled the ears. Thin threads of rain began to fall, and the downpour only grew heavier by the minute. It seemed a storm was approaching. That's a lovely paragraph of prose right there, I must say. Fortunately, the two didn't slack off while building, and had crafted a cover for the coffin as well. Otherwise, it wouldn't have taken long for it to flood with rainwater and sink into the depths. The two met eyes, and Hualian softly mumbled, "Sorry." Hua Cheng didn't say anything more and lay down inside the coffin. Hualian climbed in fully and pulled the cover over them. As if a candle had been blown out, they sank into darkness. The coffin floated into open water and drifted errantly for a while. Pouring rain beat down on the cover, and the two spoke not a word inside. There was... No, I'm sorry. I'm sure this is like the oldest joke in the fandom, but I just got there. There is only one coffin. I'm sure you guys have been memeing that since the dawn of time, but like I'm new. I just got there. Where even am I? What is even happening? I don't know. Who can say? No. Yes. Okay. Their bodies were pressed hard against one another, but it couldn't be helped. They were squished into such a narrow space. The waves pushed and pulled them, flipped and flopped them. Hualian used one hand to push against the edge of the coffin to steady himself, trying his best to make more room. His head knocked lightly against the wood with the motion, and Hua Cheng reached out to cradle the back of his head with one hand, shielding it from further bumps. He rested the other hand on his back and pressed him to his chest. Hualian didn't even dare to breathe harshly. Senlong, how about we switch it up? Switch what? Hua Cheng asked. I hate her and everything she fucking stands for. Switch what? Hua Cheng asked. You on top and me on the bottom, Hualian replied. Top, bottom. Isn't it all the same? Hua Cheng asked, inadvertently outing himself as verse. Hualian was afraid he was too heavy. Our journey will take at least a day. Your body is only 17 or 18 right now, isn't it? And I'm a martial god. I'm very heavy. Before he could finish his sentence, he was forced to exclaim, Sanlang, don't just suddenly turn big. No! You cannot. You cannot give me true form Hua Cheng right now. You can't do that. Don't do this to me. Don't. Why am I about to cry? Don't do that. No. I'm out. Where's the emergency? No, I'm gone. Fucking no. I don't know where. I don't know where. Okay. Hang on. Everybody shut up. It's fine. Although it was hard to see in the dark, they were pressed together so tightly that Hualian could feel Hua Cheng's body transform. While the change was minute, he still sensed it and assumed Hua Cheng had probably transformed back to his true form. She finally did it. She fucking broke me. She fucking, that's it. Sure enough, when Hua Cheng spoke again, his laugh was deeper. Oh, my bad. His voice isn't deeper unless he's in OG form. That makes sense. I should probably have been. My bad. I haven't been doing proper voice. I'll remember that in the future. Sure enough, when Hua Cheng spoke again, his laugh was deeper. Truly, his real voice. Hualian lay helplessly on his chest. Oh, it's terrible. But after the change, the nebulous awkwardness lightened a bit. Really? Because it just heightened a lot for me. Hoping to shift his body and change position. Did I just spill tea? I did. Hoping to shift his body and change position, he raised his legs slightly, but Hua Cheng abruptly stopped laughing. Don't move, he said grimly. Hualian froze. There was a loud noise, and the coffin sank violently. Hualian was bewildered. What's going on? Soon after, there was another roaring sound, and the two were forcibly tossed around inside the coffin. It seemed their vessel had rolled over. Thank goodness there weren't any leaks, but that couldn't be guaranteed if they were attacked again. Hua Cheng pressed him down. Something's got its eye on this coffin boat. As soon as he spoke, the two felt a familiar weightlessness, and their positions abruptly changed from lying to upright. The coffin boat rose up, then swiftly plunged, flipping over once more. Hua Cheng's arms were locked in a vice grip around Hualian's waist, with one hand still shielding his head. Hold on tight to me, he shouted. If they were in an open space, Hualian could manage, even if the spinning were 3 times as violent. The problem was they were trapped inside a narrow, tight space. They couldn't stretch out their limbs, and they had no idea what was happening outside. All he could do was tense and alert while anxiety roiled within. What if the coffin breaks? Hualian wondered. Don't worry. Even if it breaks, I'm here. You won't sink. Hua Cheng reassured. They were firmly pressed against each other, and Hua Cheng nearly brushed his lips against his hair when he spoke. Hualian could even feel the slight tremble of his Adam's apple. It made his mind start to wander. But his attention was stolen again by another wave of violent rolling. I will kill this ocean. The boat was like a toy being jostled about by a toddler, and it shook and swung ceaselessly. With no other choice, Hualian embraced Hua Cheng tightly with one hand, bracing the other on the coffin wall. Through the chaos, the two were hoisted and dropped, flipped and flopped into who knows how many different positions. Their bodies collided and rubbed together in countless ways. Even though Hua Cheng had the appearance of a young man, only after this tumble did Hualian realize that Hua Cheng was solid and hard from top to bottom. In every sense of the word by now, I'm sure. Hualian was seeing stars from the torment. When the shaking finally eased for a moment, he found that Hua Cheng was now on top of him. He pressed down heavily and crushed the breath out of him. Hualian managed to raise his hand and grabbed onto the strong forearm beside his body that Hua Cheng was using to prop himself up. His head spun and he groaned softly. Is it over yet? For some reason, Hua Cheng didn't respond. Before Hualian finished his thought, his breathing hitched. He had very suddenly noticed that a certain part of this... We're gonna try that again. We're gonna get a running start. Before Hualian finished his thought, his breathing hitched. He had very suddenly noticed that a certain part of his body had experienced a somewhat unusual shift. In that split second, Hualian felt more incredulous than if he'd seen an iron tree bloom. There's a footnote. There's a footnote for the iron tree bloom. It's an idiom that means a very rare occurrence or something extremely difficult to achieve. Felt more incredulous than if he'd seen an iron tree bloom. Yeah. And at least his mind wouldn't be so blank in such a scenario. Mortifying shame and embarrassment battered him more violently than the tempest battering the coffin outside. Hualian closed his knees in panic, but that didn't appear to be the right move. It seemed he touched something he shouldn't have, and it elicited a brusque grunt from Hua Cheng. Don't move. The grunt was deep and sharp, and Hualian hurriedly flattened his legs again. If he didn't close his knees, he was scared Hua Cheng might notice his body's reaction, in which case he might as well just smash his head against the coffin and die. He truly is a gay. He truly is a queer. That is the gayest thing he's ever said. Thought. Whatever. What have you. He could have explained it away as an unavoidable natural reaction. But there was already that awkward incident on the island. He could say it was unintentional once or twice, but how could he possibly explain himself after the third or fourth time? You're getting so close, Hualian. You're right there. Trapped in such a dire situation, Hualian blurted, "No, Senlong, don't touch me." There was a brief silence. Then Hua Cheng said gravely, "Very well. Let's break out of here." It was like he had been absolved. Hualian cried, "Go!" With another vicious attack of weightlessness, the coffin that contained the two was thrust into the air. Just as it was, Hua Cheng and Hualian smacked their palms on either side of the coffin in unison, and it shattered instantly. The two broke free and leapt out under the moonlight. Hualian looked back and saw a giant water dragon dangling the broken pieces of the coffin from its mouth. Ooh! It let out a roar beneath the pouring rain, baring its sharp teeth as if raging at the empty coffin it had presumed was full of food. This water dragon must have been thrashing the coffin boat about with its mouth, snapping it here and twisting it there. The coffin boat had drifted at sea for a while, but the water dragon had dragged it back inland. The two landed back on Blackwater Island. There were two new figures on the beach, Watermaster Wudu and General Pei. Shiwudu's hands were still in a seal, and he faced the storm like he was trying to call the water dragon over. Pei Ming patted his shoulder. Watermaster Xiang, just take it easy, will you? This round is over, but who knows when the next will come. Save your energy for now. Turned out, the sudden pouring rain was the accompaniment to Shiwudu's heavenly tribulation. The storm was calming down, and Shiwudu whirled around with a flick of his sleeves to regard Hua Cheng and Xilian. What's with you two? He questioned. Pei Ming just had to give his input as well. Yeah, Your Highness, why don't you two explain yourselves? What's going on? What were you two doing in there? Well, they were about to. When the coffin boat exploded, their tight embrace was put on display for all to see. Xilian blinked. He was about to speak when he abruptly realized that after tumbling around inside the narrow coffin boat, their hair was mussed and their clothes were disheveled. The two of them looked as improper as one could imagine. Xilian wiped the rain off his face and found that his cheeks were burning. Hua Cheng took a step forward to shield him. A moment later, Xilian softly cleared his throat. Nothing's going on, just... the coffin was too small. Shiwudu was puzzled. I wasn't asking about that! Pei Ming pointed at all the leftover wood pieces they left behind on the beach. You made that coffin yourselves, right? Why didn't you build a bigger one? The real questions. The coffin boat was designed by both Hua Cheng and Xilian, and it seems neither of them had considered making it bigger at the time. Xilian could only laugh awkwardly. You're right. Did my lords only just drift to this island? Yes, Pei Ming replied. Watermaster Xiang battled the current of the Blackwater Demon Lair, and we only just made it here. Didn't expect to see a coffin sailing the waters of the Blackwater Demon Lair. What a curious sight. Xilian could feel himself tense, and he forced a smile. Curious indeed. You. Shiwudu turned to Hua Cheng and narrowed his eyes. Oh, God, that's right. He's in his true form right now. Unless he went back? On the ship, didn't you say that the only thing that doesn't sink in the Blackwater Demon Lair is wood that has carried the dead? Pei Ming drew his sword. Yeah, he said leisurely. There's the wood, but where's the dead? Hua Cheng smiled too. If you're so concerned with who's dead here... If you're so concerned with who's dead here, I suggest you go kill yourself. Hua Cheng's a little frustrated right now. I wouldn't really talk to him. Pei Ming pointed his blade at him. Such arrogance, as expected of Crimson Rainsought Flower. As suspected, he had already guessed. Hua Cheng burst out laughing, and seeing that a fight was about to start, Xilian stepped protectively in front of Hua Cheng. My lords, please calm yourselves. You can be completely assured that Senlong is on this journey out of generosity alone. Senlong? Pei Ming wondered. I've never heard of Lord Crimson Rainsought Flower ranking among the boys of some house. And generosity? Your Highness, are you sure that's the word to describe his intentions? Shiwudu had to stand in the spotlight at all times, so he pushed Pei Ming aside. Are you the one who's been meddling this entire trip? He demanded sharply. What is your intention in luring us here to the Blackwater Demon Lair? Where's Qingshuan? This is someone else's territory. Do you think I want to be here? Hua Cheng answered. Xilian was already used to these kinds of situations and changed the subject with practiced ease. Has Lord Windmaster not been found yet? Didn't General Pei go looking for him and the Earthmaster? Pei Ming shrugged. I almost fished them up, but one of Watermaster Xiang's waves came along and washed them away. Mind your misleading tongue, Pei Xiang, Shiwudu snapped. If I didn't raise waves and simply allowed those things in the water to keep attacking over and over, you wouldn't have been able to find them in the first place. Calm down, Xilian soothed quickly. Lord Windmaster is with Lord Earthmaster, so there shouldn't be any need to worry. Shiwudu humphed. Earthmaster? What good is that Earthmaster? Mediocre and unaccomplished. He's not a martial god either, and his spiritual powers aren't as strong as Qingshuan's. He trailed off when he seemed to remember that Qingshuan no longer possessed any spiritual powers. His face fell, and he grew silent. Every profession has its experts, Xilian thought. Although Ming Yi wasn't a martial god and his spiritual powers weren't terribly strong, he wasn't as bad as the Water Master described. Besides, the skills the Earth Master demonstrated at Banyue Pass weren't bad at all. Even if he wasn't the best, he wasn't the worst either. Don't worry too much yet, Pei Ming assured as well. Lord Earthmaster should be able to take care of things as long as they don't run into Demon Xuan. Great! Well, we know where they are. Hua Cheng laughed. Your heavenly tribulation has pursued you all the way to the Blackwater Demon Lair. You guys have already made a huge mess of his territory. Do you really think the master of the domain hasn't noticed? Shiwadu's face twitched, and he retrieved a golden longevity lock pendant from underneath the collar of his robes. Watermaster Xiang, did something happen? Pei Ming asked. The golden longevity lock vibrated in Shiwadu's palm. Qingxuan is close by, and he's injured. Shi Lian took a look at the golden pendant. It looked exactly the same as the one Shi Qingxuan had been wearing that day, the one he removed to build the protection array and left behind in the end. Is Lord Windmaster still wearing his longevity lock? I remember he removed it before. I picked it up and put it on him again, Shiwadu said. The two longevity locks had been forged by the brothers' golden essence. When they were near one another and one was hurt, the locks would call out to each other. The closer they were, the stronger the resonance. This was a natural attribute of the locks and not a spell, so it was unaffected by the demon layer's spiritual field. Shiwadu removed the longevity lock pendant. I'm still processing a lot of things. Shiwadu removed the longevity lock pendant from his neck and dangled the chain from his hand. He held his arm out straight and slowly turned in a circle. When he faced a certain direction, the vibration of the golden lock abruptly grew stronger. It was calling them into the forest, toward the unfathomably deep heart of the lonely island. Looks like Qingxuan is here, Shiwadu said grimly. With that, he strode into the forest with large strides. Naturally, Pei Ming followed along. Shi Lian thought about their present situation. Since the Wind and Earth Masters were both on the island and the Wind Master seemed to be injured, finding them should be their priority. They could worry about the rest later. My lords, there are little ghost minions hiding in the forest. Be careful of ambushes. Hua Cheng came along as well. Shi Lian wanted to grab his hand, but remembered his disgraceful state in the coffin boat, and his outstretched hand shrank back in spite of himself. In the end, he tugged a corner of Hua Cheng's sleeve, not daring to look at his face. Pei Ming, however, looked back frequently and appeared to be very interested. Your Highness and Crimson Rainsought Flower, the two of you sure are stuck together like glue. A ghost king like yourself, following us so openly, aren't you even going to try to avoid suspicion? What is General Pei saying? Shi Lian replied easily. Under these circumstances, it's much less suspicious if he comes along. If my lords run into any danger, you may suspect him. How else can he hope to clear his name? He made it to the rank of Supreme, so what difference does it make if he's with us or not? Wouldn't it be easy for him to create a clone? Pei Ming said. He had just spoken when a sharp sound tore through the air. Pei Ming raised his hand and caught an arrow. So there is something. That was close. Watermaster Xiang, be careful. Before he could finish, there were more swishing sounds, and several more arrows came flying toward him. Pei Ming swept his sword and wondered, what the heck? Shiwadu laughed out loud. Pei Xiang, I think you'd best watch yourself instead. Then he quickened his pace. An ambush of arrows was nothing to be afraid of. It was simply an annoyance. Pei Ming irritably flattened a patch of shrubbery and soon plucked out a few more little minions. You guys got guts. The ghosts were scrawny and sallow-skinned, the lowest of lackeys. They were terrified of the general and cowered in little balls as they hung from his hand, begging for mercy non-stop. They were gatekeepers after all, so attacking intruders was what they had to do. Pei Ming let them go after a few threats. When they ran into more cunning and vicious minions later on, Pei Ming squashed those ghoulies into a ball and dribbled it as they made their way. The four of them brushed away branches and pushed their way through bushes, hiking through the dense forest for what seemed like ages. As they walked, the resonant cries of the golden lock in Shiwadu's hand grew louder and louder. Finally, they reached a large clearing at the heart of the forest. At the center of it was a lake, and the four walked toward it. Suddenly, Pei Ming spoke up. Crimson Rainsalt Flower, if you continue with these pranks, I won't tolerate you much longer. Both Hua Cheng and Hualian looked at him, then at each other. Pei Ming frowned. If you want to fight, then challenge me like a man. I'm not like those 33 heavenly officials. I'm not afraid of you. Shoving me around is pointless. Hua Cheng arched his brows. Guga, you have to believe me. I've got nothing to do with this. Hualian intervened. General Pei, he doesn't play meaningless pranks like that. Pei Ming was doubtful. Really? Hualian grew alarmed. Be careful, something else on this island might be stirring up trouble. Pei Ming stopped talking. Right then, Shiwudu slowed his pace. It's here. The golden longevity lock seemed to cry hardest here, meaning Shi Qingxuan was somewhere close, but this area was open with nowhere to hide. There was nothing here besides the lake. Could there be an underground palace? Pei Ming wondered. Shiwudu stared at the surface of the water, and Hualian said, or it could be at the bottom of the lake. But a lake on Blackwater Island shouldn't be entered carelessly, lest one never come up again. The surface of the lake was calm and unrippled. It looked like a giant mirror, reflecting the blanched moon that hung high in the starless, cloudless night sky. The four circled the edge of the lake. Hualian was still weighing options about how to investigate the lake bottom when a terrified scream ripped through the night air. Shiwudu was leading the group, and Pei Ming was bringing up the rear. The three in front looked back to see that the screamer was the little ghost that Pei Ming had captured on the road. Its scrawny, bony body stood in place, but its head was gone, and black blood spurted almost 3 meters from its neck. Its head was flying through the air, screeching. General Pei, why did you kill it so suddenly? Hualian asked. Pei Ming, however, exclaimed, No! Before he could explain, his body crumpled, and he dropped to one knee. Hua Cheng laughed. There's no need for such a grand apology. Hua Cheng's, now's not the time for your exceedingly hilarious bullshit. Pei Ming's expression was stark bewilderment. Watermaster Xiang, watch out, he shouted. Watch out for what, though? Other than the four of them by the lake, there was nothing here. It was as if Pei Ming had been bound by something invisible. Shiwudu was rushing over to help when a chilling light flashed in front of him. He dodged just in time, though the attack still managed to draw a trail of blood across one of his cheeks. He wiped it with his hand, and his face changed. Hualian stood firm in front of Hua Cheng to shield him. An invisibility spell. Pei Ming finally broke free of his formless constraints. Gather around, don't split up, he shouted. But Shiwudu didn't care. The moment he heard the longevity lock start crying again, he charged around the lake, frantically calling out for his brother. Qingxuan! Qingxuan! It was mayhem, but amidst the ruckus, Hualian noticed something quite peculiar. The area along the lakeshore was open and empty, with no notable landmarks to be seen. But the shore reflected on the lake's surface showed a different story. Fucking awesome! In the reflection, a charcoal black building loomed on the edge of the water. The building was cold and sinister, more like a prison than a place where someone lived. It had no door, only a set of windows set high in the walls and sealed by unforgiving iron bars. A pale white hand reached from between those iron bars, waving desperately like it was begging for help. Hualian's head shot up, and he looked to the shore opposite him. There was nothing there aside from Shiwudu darting around with the longevity lock. When he looked down again, the reflection clearly showed a sinister iron prison. Shiwudu was right in front of the building, but he couldn't see it. My lords, Hualian blurted, I found it, look! Just then, his pupils shrank. Something new was reflected within Blackwater Lake. A shadowy figure had appeared soundlessly behind him and Hua Cheng. Oh, fuck no! No, that's not the end of the chapter. Fuck you. No, that's the end of the chapter. That's a creepy end of the goddamn chapter. We are now on page 197 for chapter 64 in the Netherwater Manor. Black robes, white bones. What the fuck does that, We could just read and find out. We should technically get through another 10 pages, but hang on, let me see if there's a nice, easy Maybe. It feels like, somebody back me up on this. It feels like this is a really good place to stop. So we may have to stop at a, it seems like there's no nice place to stop. Yeah, okay, hang on. Let me get back there. It's as good a place as any, yeah. We started on less painful to stop here. Okay. Cool, because we started on like 150. Yeah, we started on 157. Oh, this is funny. So it's only 40 pages. Okay, it's only 40 pages instead of 50, but it's a really kind of convenient place to stop from the looks of things. There's no convenient scene break or whatever in another 10 pages. So we'll go ahead and stop here for today, and then I'll do some page math and figure out if that affects much of anything, because I usually try to at least schedule one extra session just in case for times like these. It shouldn't make too big of a difference, though. Where did my bookmark? There it is. Okay, so we're now about to go into Netherwater Manor, I imagine, which did give more prison vibes than anything else. This is really fucking cool. I mean, you know, mental and emotional breakdowns from everything else aside, this is really fucking cool. I really like this arc, even aside from all of that happening. I really like this. I'm super interested to see inside, even though I also kind of don't want to, because MXTX can be real creepy when she wants to be. You just give her half an opportunity. But other than that, this is a really good example. All the Coffin bullshit. Really good example of how MXTX gives you fucking everything that you could ever possibly ask for, while at the same time pulling back just enough to drive you fucking crazy. It's witchcraft. I don't know how she does it. I'm gonna have to study this bullshit, because I don't know, man. It feels so indulgent with the way that she just gives us everything, but at the same time, it's like I just said what I said 2 seconds ago, but I just repeated myself. You know what I mean. You know what? There we go. Okay. Katrine, even possibly? I'm so sorry that I cannot pronounce your name. She is a master of edging. That's it. That's exactly it. Yeah. Narrative edging, she does. And I feel like it's what, all, to some degree or another, it's what all, romance writers or anyone putting a romance in their story is kind of doing or aiming for. But she's a master. There's just no... there's just no comparing. I'm exhausted. Oh, really? We should have wine for the next stream? Really? We should have wine for the manor? It is Thursday, so that does give me the weekend. I tell you what, where's a pen? Do I have a pen? Hang on. I'm trying to be responsible and write things down. I usually have a pen around. Oh, wait, hang on. It's underneath some bullshit. Hang on. There we go. Okay. If I have the opportunity, and it's the end of the month, so if my bank account allows. I will see if I can grab some. I'll see if I can grab some of that, some of the wine that I drank for Hannibal. It's like Arbor Mist. I think it's like their blackberry something. It's like just super sugary red wine that I remember not being half bad as someone who doesn't like wine. I'll see. I will probably wind up at Walmart over the weekend. We have ideas. There are possibilities. Yes, although the pretentious Walmart wine. There was a whole saga with pretentious Walmart wine in Hannibal, if you ever saw those reactions. And this is like the least pretentious because it's Arbor Mist, right? Like it knows what it is. But there were a ton of varieties that I worked my way through that were very highly ridiculous in their labels and their descriptions. And it's like, you are a $8 bottle of wine at Walmart. Who do you think you are? But anyway, so I'll see if I can pull that off for the next session. I'm gonna go lay down, or maybe I'll go like run around the block a couple dozen times. I don't know, something. I'm just gonna go do something because that was fucking ridiculous. I love her so much. I want to push her off a cliff. And it is with that sentiment that I'll go ahead and call it for today. I will see you guys next Tuesday. Next week should be the same thing. Tuesday, Thursday, same time. I'm not sure if we'll finish the book next week or if I think it'll be a week after or something like that. But we are now definitely halfway. So, I will see you guys on Tuesday to go through the manor, hopefully with wine in hand. And, God, I don't know. My mind is blank. So, I love you guys very, 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 very much. And please remember to take care of yourselves, all right? And I will see you guys on Tuesday, same time. Eyeliner permitting.